So apparently we've gone live. First episode live, boys.
Woo!
Episode 4 of the Let's Talk Gamescast. Clocks have changed. We can do this at a reasonable hour. So yeah, welcome back. Episode number 4. Episode number 4.
It is
Good to be here.
It is.
Good to be here.
It is. Yes. I look forward to this.
It's always good fun. So, without further ado, we may as well crack on to what we've been playing this week. And for reference, I'm Jamie. Although for the remainder of this episode, I'm going to be Tom Nook. And Dan's there in the middle, and Chunt is over. No, he's not. Dan's on the left, and Chunt is in the middle. On my screen, they look different. But how are we doing, guys? We all right?
Totes fab.
We're good. Glad it's the weekend.
Indeed.
Yeah. Weekends
How
are fun
about you,
times.
Jamie?
So I'm all right. I've been playing lots of video games this week, which we shall talk about. But Dan, what have you played this week?
It's been quite a quiet week. Last few episodes, I talked about different games I was trying to play, and I didn't really get to do that this week. So it was a lot of NBA 2K. I won a couple of championships, not bragging.
Nice.
But yeah, fucked up a little bit, but got it back on track. Anyway, that's my game for the week. Chunt, on to you.
Okay. Well, we've played some Gears earlier this week. Gears 5 campaign with Jamie. That was good. So we got pretty far actually. I think we finished chapter 2 or up to chapter 3 or something now. I fucking love that game.
We did, yeah. We got into chapter 3.
So good. And I got stuck into Sonic Adventure 2 after having my gut full of Adventure 1. It's an old game, I get it. It's just janky as hell. But I was actually surprised at how well Sonic Adventure 2 was in comparison. So I'm quite enjoying that. It's a bit more linear than the other one. I don't like the other one. You got 6 different paths, and you have to finish the game 6 times to get the whole story with every character. And I played Sonic's part, and I'm done. The next Adventure 2, it's like light side, dark side path, and that's it. So I'm doing that at the moment, and that's pretty much it. I haven't been as bouncy between a lot of games this time. I'm trying to just get one done at a time.
And what have you been playing today?
Sonic can only go on so many adventures at once, you know?
Very true. Very true. But he is super fast, so we can have many at once. You know,
Yeah,
fastest thing alive.
That's true. Well, I wouldn't see it even if I could. Yeah,
that's all right. Very good.
So I think you maybe also played Animal Crossing, Chunt.
Oh yeah, let's just swing right into that. Look,
that Tom Nook image didn't last very long, did it?
He's coming back. He'll just appear at random times. He's trying to cash in on his. He wants the interest paying on his loans.
Let's get this in context. Like
that's the thing about Animal Crossing. There is no interest. It's amazing.
No, yeah, true. I was actually surprised about that. If the real world would work that way, that'd be fantastic. But no one would make any money. But look, for context, I've never played any Animal Crossing game. I had never imagined myself ever doing so. And now we're all stuck inside and everybody's playing it. And it's like fear of missing out's real. And then Jamie's like, oh, man, I'm thinking about getting it. I've been playing some demo and on my phone and stuff, and I love it. And I'm like, oh, look. Oh, and then my brother's talking about getting it. I'm like, oh, God. All right. Let's have a look. And there's all these people that are tweeting about, like, far out. And I just said, stuff it. You know, if we're going to be locked up here for a while, I'll give it a go. I've paid all my bills. I'll spend a bit on a game. And yeah, I bought it. And I was a little apprehensive because I was like, man, that was $70-something. If I don't like that, I'm going to be quite annoyed. And yeah, so I finished work and I got stuck into it. And yeah, I played it until my battery ran out of my Switch. I'm quite invested in it at the moment, to the point where I was just playing it while we're setting the stream up, figuring things out, and I can see how people like it. And it's just something like it reminds me of Farmville days. I used to play Farmville on Facebook like all the time, and it reminds me of that loop. And it's very relaxing. It's just what I need. I think everybody needs it. And you see that conversation going around where people are like, this is a game that I need right now. It's just a good thing to turn off and chill out. The ambience and the location and the colors and the characters. And I appreciate it, and I don't know why I didn't catch on to this sooner. I don't know if it's just a matter of circumstance that we're in. That I want to try something different because I've barely been outside for 2 weeks, and I can see myself playing this a lot, and just the whole like, oh, well, let's be friends on this game, and I'll come visit your island and all this kind of shit. I'm like, oh, that's cute, isn't it? Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, if I can't see you in
So-
real life, I can come visit your Animal Crossing island.
Yeah, that's right. And
the funny thing is, you said that you paid your bills, but have you paid for your house now that you're in Animal Crossing?
yeah, well, you have to pay it off at some stage before you progress to the next stage. So when you get there, he's like, here's your bill for your travel expenses and everything of getting here, your setup fees and stuff. And you're like, oh, okay. Then he goes, you can either pay me like 40 something thousand bells, like acorn things, or you can rack them up in doing stuff around the island, like errands and just figuring stuff out. So I just went around doing stuff and marked off all these check boxes, and I got like 5,000 mile points or whatever, and you hand those in. And he's like, all right, your travel and expenses are all paid off now. Go enjoy yourself.
I reckon I'd have much rather paid him in bells. The air miles are more difficult to get.
Yeah, I've only got 14,000 bells at the moment, and I wasn't going to sit around for another, until I get 40 of them, or 30,000 more. But yeah, look, I'm quite hooked on it, and it's unexpected, but I like that. It's a happy unexpected, and I named my island Candor, and that's part of Superman lore. It's the taken from the miniature bottle-ized city of Candor, which was part of Krypton that Brainiac has in a miniature form in his ship. So I figured it's quite fitting that I have a miniature island in my little Switch here. It's essentially the same thing, so I thought Candor would be quite fitting.
You might actually be able to make it look quite like that eventually as well, which is another cool thing about it.
Yeah,
I've obviously also played Animal Crossing this week. As Chunt alluded to, I was toying. I was like, oh, is it really going to be that? And the more I looked into it, I was like, yeah, maybe this is something we need just, for this kind of scenario we're in. And it definitely is. And I think we're about the same length of the way through it. I also played the Pocket Camp thing on the phone just to see what the loop was like. Dan's waiting to say something.
Not to hijack you here, Jamie, but can you describe in one sentence or two what is Animal Crossing?
A life simulator that's friendlier than normal life.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, you want to live there.
I think that's ultimately the only way to describe it. But I did play some other stuff as well this week. Gears with you, Chunt, as you said earlier in the week. I finished Ori and the Blind Forest. Got into Ori and the Will of the Wisps. That game is phenomenally beautiful. Really, really impressively good looking. Really, really good looking. And I started my time at Porsche because I was trying to scratch that Animal Crossing itch before buying it. It didn't scratch the itch, unfortunately. And this is the first week in probably 11 weeks or so that I haven't booted
Destiny
at all.
Whoa!
Full stop at all. I've cleared myself of my addiction. It's no longer a fact of my life. I'm not addicted anymore.
No longer your destiny.
I know. It's just been replaced by Animal Crossing, which, literally played about 13, 14 hours of in the last 2 days, which is not good. You sat there at 1 a.m. in the morning going, why the fuck am I still playing this game? Switch it off to go to sleep. Which I did. So, with what we've been playing kind of out of the way, next thing we want to discuss this week is kind of a concept around next-gen consoles. We obviously spoke about next-gen consoles a few weeks back, just in terms of what we were expecting. There was a price leak out on a Danish retailer listing the PlayStation 5 at around £839 UK, which when we converted to Australian dollars for you guys was looking sort of in between the $1,400 and $1,600 mark, which is outrageous. That's PC build costs, and I don't think it's going to be that. I think it's a placeholder price personally, but it set us off on a conversation internally between us around would we consider paying for a console in the same way as we do a phone. So your phone contract, of course, lasts over 18 months, 2 years, 3 years, however it's set up in different places around the world. But you pay a monthly fee for owning that phone and using the service. Now, we've seen Xbox have Xbox is it called All Access, Chunt? I think it is.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, Xbox Access, All Access, whichever it's called, which is similar to that. So here in the UK, that is $27.99 a month. You can get an Xbox One X and Game Pass Ultimate. So everything's included for that kind of one monthly fee, which is pretty good. So moving into next gen, guys, I guess I want to see your opinions on, would you consider this for next gen? Is it an easier way of getting people in? And, you'll still own the box outright at the end of your quote unquote contract. Is it a way that you'd consider investing in next gen? Chunt, start with you.
If I wasn't paying more at the end of it to have one, like if it's no more than the actual cost price or retail price, I might consider it. It's definitely a lesser blow than dropping, if it's potentially say $1,000. I'd feel better about signing up for a small monthly installment than dropping $1,000 straight up. Everybody's circumstance is different. Other people are worse off than I am, and particularly now where you've got people losing jobs left and right at the moment. I think coming out of this, if they do launch the console and people are scrounging for jobs, and who knows if they want to find some kind of semblance of escape and there's a new console, maybe the option of a installment monthly fee is more enticing or more available to someone. I know that I'll just say it flat out. If I could have justify at the time when it gets released, if I had $1,000 to drop, I would probably do it. But depending on what happens in the next few months, it could steer me towards doing a all access plan. Yeah, I can definitely see myself doing it, depending on the circumstance. Would not be opposed to it, Jamie.
Dan?
I'm not opposed to it. I think the more powerful these consoles are getting, it's more about giving people as many options as possible, which is why I think like physical media will never go out, because if you have a disk drive, you have the opportunity. If you want to, you can get disc. If you don't want to and you want to go all digital, you can do that too. So I think people just like having options. So if you have that option, and I think with all access, Chunt, when I did the math when it happened, like it's exactly the same price as if you bought it at the beginning. It's exactly like there was no extra cost. So if they're doing that, which makes sense because as the years go on, it becomes actually a little bit cheaper for them to make it, and they eventually get their money back and maybe a little bit more.
Yeah.
And they don't have to put on when the sales go on. They don't have to match those sales or anything.
Yeah.
This probably brings me to a bigger thing I've been thinking about with the difference between, say, Sony and Microsoft and the way that they're heading. I think for years, Microsoft, like everything they're doing, is kind of training everyone to think just a little bit different, like year on year.
Yeah.
Like even from the Xbox One S, which released in 2016, there's been, and by the end of this year, there'll be 4 consoles in essentially 5 years, with 2018 being the only year that Microsoft didn't release a console of any kind. Because you had the S, then the X, then the SAD, and then Series X will be this year.
Yep.
And so I think they're kind of training people for that. And that wouldn't surprise me if there was a Series S next year, and then they took a year off, and then they come back with the next model. Like, I think they're training people to do that. Sony, I don't think they might do a 3-year option thing, because I feel the way that Sony are trying to do it is still just do a mid-generation gap like they do with the Pro. They want to do that again, unless their console sales are really, really low and they're forced to change. I think they'll just do a mid-range. So they might do 3 years to pay for the launch console, and then by then the next one will come out for another 3 years.
Yeah, I'm a bit concerned where, well, you can think of it 2 ways. Whether you'd have the satisfaction of just dropping the money straight up, don't have to worry about it ever again. That's cool. or the more manageable small payments over 24 months or whatever it is. But goddamn, the way these are going to be priced, or that we think they're going to be priced, it'd be like gone are the days where you can kind of justify a mid generation upgrade. Like after the X, if they bring out a Z or whatever that's more powerful than the X, I would be like, come on, like that. I'm just recovering from dropping $1,000 on this, and then 3 years later you're popping out another one. Like, you know,
Yeah.
But then does the idea of having that the rolling contract become more appealing? So you have your 2 years, your 24 months. You know, you pay your installments off, and then just as that's about to hit the end of that 24 months, here's the brand new shiny, cost price remains the same, you're in for another 2 years, and here's your new box. Trade your old box in to get a bit of cash back.
I just don't think they can release them like iPhone models. Like, I just don't think they can do year on year. I think they at least need a year break in there somewhere.
Yeah, I get a year, but 2, I think, would be like, I change my phone every 2 years. I don't change it every year. Change it every 2. That's what a contract rolls on. And when you look at it, you know, I think we were saying this the other day, like in our group chat, it's people knowingly, willingly, and without qualm will drop 1,500 on this year's iPhone. It'll happen. Yeah. People will do it. So the sheer fact that the expectation is that we can have a powerful console leagues ahead of what we've got currently, and people are going to get up in arms about it if it doesn't cost 300 or 400, 500 around that mark. It's like, oh no, it's too expensive. But you'll willingly go and buy a new phone every 2 years that costs you between 12 and 1,500. Like, the logic isn't there. These things are getting more powerful. The parts are more expensive. Like, there's got to be a bit of give and take, which is why I think we are inevitably moving towards that contract model. And phones have prepared us for it in recent years. I mean, if they are affordable, and I hope they are, you know, the more people with these boxes in their houses, the better. The better for everybody. But in the event that, you know, people are throwing around 600 for the Series X, maybe 5 for the PlayStation, and it's like, well, to me, that's still in affordable territory for not the majority, for a good core group of users. You know, there may be people then that upgrade a year or 2 down the line when, you know, that 500 price tag's $399 or something along those lines. But I can see the contract model becoming really appealing this generation, because I think they're going to be far more expensive, these consoles, than anybody's even currently thinking about. And just to touch on next gen stuff as well, you sent a link around earlier, Chunt, about something that I kind of leaked online about the design of the PlayStation 5. Dan, did you have a chance to read that?
Yeah, I had a skim through it, but you guys lead this one off.
Yeah, it's I don't know how much of that seems bullshit, that apparently Sony don't have hardware ready because the clock frequencies are not stable and the machine's overheating, which is why we haven't seen anything yet. And allegedly, you know, said person who, you know, we're not going to promote or quote this kind of stuff because we don't know if it's true for a start, but putting that idea out there, that is that why we haven't seen anything? Personally, for me, no, I think it's nonsense. If PlayStation aren't set on a design for their box by now, there's no way that console's coming out this year. If its clock frequencies aren't correct, and if it's overheating and failing on a, you know, again, to use the terms in the article, on a regular basis, like, I just don't see that as being possible. Does it seem plausible to you guys, or does it seem like internet hoo-ha?
Well, look, if you look at the PS4 and the PS4 Pro, you see all those videos and people saying it, you know, oh, mine sounds like a jet engine, and you can see the videos where it's like blasting heat, and I've seen them at mates' places where you'd be playing God of War, and you know, it'll start getting a bit hectic, and you hear the fans kick up, and it's like, whoa, you know, that thing's quite loud in comparison to the S and the X Xbox. If they use the same design mentality to going into the PS5 as far as how they're ventilating it and their cooling systems and whatnot, I just think, yeah, it's a rumor, but it could be built on pre-existing knowledge of, like, yeah, this is a problem. Like, PS4 has a known thing now for being loud, because the fans are just kicking in overtime. And actually, when I was staying in Melbourne with my mate, we're going down for what whatever, it doesn't matter. But we're playing God of War at the time, just came out, and we're just having a long ass session playing it, and the PS4 turned off because it overheated. Like the fans, it's a PS4 Pro, and he'd gone through like 3 of them before I even came down. And so he wasn't having much luck on it. So for me personally, just looking at my mate's experience and stuff that you can see online, it's like, well, there could be some precedence for it if they're using the same, design stuff going forward, which I hope they would learn from it and not do that. Like they've got 110 something million units out there, and like they're known for being, one of the highest selling consoles out there. But at what cost? Like you've got system faults like that. Like I can't remember the last time I heard someone having a whinge about an X, failing on them or shutting off or overheating. Like you just don't hear it, even with the S consoles, even with the original Xbox One. They had this giant ass fan on the top just to be like, that's not going to happen, and it was still quiet as, And,
they had their red ring moment, which this quote seemed to be pointing towards. That's what they're frightened of. Like the level is, red ring of death level, as in like this is failing very regularly, and if we mass produce this in its current state, we're in for a world of hurt. I don't think that they're daft enough to make that mistake. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know what's happening behind the scenes. Like you got all these Sony heads like leaving and moving around and unceremoniously like walking off, and you don't know what's happening. Like when Reggie left Nintendo, it was like this massive heartfelt goodbye for everybody, And when Matt Booty came on to Xbox to fill in some shoes from Phil Spencer, and he was welcomed with open arms, and Phil Spencer moved on to more of the actual head of Xbox stuff, and and that was all well received. But when you've got like Sean Layden and others, and the other bloke from Sony Europe, I can't remember his name at the moment, moving off, and why is that happening? There's no heartfelt goodbye, no kind of announcement. And we don't know anything about the PS5 except the specs that have come out. We haven't seen it. No expectations. Like it just sounds all a bit fishy. So when you read something like that, and some people are kind of buying it, that I look through the replies and they're like, "Oh, it sounds kind of plausible. This guy, he's been right about stuff in the past, or that whole shit." And you're like, well, you never know.
Yeah, a reputable source rather than a. I don't know in what world it can happen. I mean, again, nothing would surprise me this year. We didn't think that we could have been inside.
To take your quote, I mean, I don't know. Maybe I have some type of bias, which I don't really care because it's corporations. I don't really care about them. But so going off Chant's point with the PlayStation 4, I like mine. Yeah, sounds like a jet engine, but it's also the PS4 that I've had since launch as well, and it hasn't cracked it yet. And Sony, as a they're an electronics company. They've always built hardware. They've never really run into anything major before. Like there is like overheating is a thing with consoles in general, but I don't think any of the consoles in the last 7 years, maybe even a little bit longer, have really run into significant issues like at all. I think it's possible with like Sony wouldn't come out and talk about there was a specific thing in his talk about how the console will operate the same way no matter how hot it gets because of the PS5 boost and stuff that they're putting into it. So I don't know why you would come out in your first spec talk about it with that being such a major thing on the back end. Like, because it's not something you need to talk about, because at that talk, no one was asking to hear about how the heating issue's going. So why even talk about it if it's a problem that they're running into?
No one asked for that. No one asked for that talk at all.
Like it doesn't make the timing doesn't make sense. But we're still so far out as well. So,
but that's the thing. We say it's far out. It's April.
Yeah.
Like that gives them 6 months really before these things need to start shipping.
Yeah, it's very weird.
Like it is. It's just it is a bit strange. But again, for the whole purpose of that kind of bit, I don't believe that that's true. I think there is something going on behind the scenes that they may be having an issue with, but at that level, a chip not being able to hold its frequency, and developers having a bunch of issues with it. I can see developers having issues for sure. If it's not working, for all intents and purposes, the PS4 and the Xbox One work pretty much the same. The architecture is very similar. If PlayStation are trying to push something out there that's really giving developers a hard time to repurpose things, that could be a problem. But I really don't think that this is going to be that big of a deal. I hope it's not.
Most of the time, the truth is always somewhere in the middle. So
True.
Even if he has heard from so and so, right now the thing might be they're working on the heat, and he's heard it as there's something wrong with the heat, whereas they're just working on it because that's how consoles operate.
Well, fingers crossed it doesn't happen, because irrespective, the PlayStation is going to sell a bunch of consoles.
It's just unusual. Like, you look at it on the other side, where Xbox is just like swinging their dick. Like, we love this, we love our products, we're so confident in it. Let's just talk to YouTubers and let's just talk. We'll have the head of Xbox hop on an IGN podcast, randomly, and talk about some more stuff and answer some questions, because everything's up in the air with E3 and shit. And and I don't know if you guys watched Ryan McCaffrey's interview recently with Phil Spencer, but
about halfway through it.
Yeah, like Phil Spencer's, he got asked pretty bluntly by Ryan McCaffrey, and he's like, "Yeah, look, after we saw the specs and stuff come out, from that video, they all felt pretty good about where they are. Like, they're pretty happy with their positioning, and it's just obvious. Like, I mean, they've been working on this since 2016, and they had 4 years of working on this thing, and now they're just like, we've got all this shit to talk about. They're fully prepared, coming out, and I'm sure they know what the other guys are doing. Like, they have to know, at least have an inkling about the industry, because they're both using the same like A&D stuff. So they'd have a similar idea of what the other side is doing. So if they go, all right, let's just bump it up a bit, and that'll give us a good guess at where we're going to be leading in that. And just like the constant bombardment, like, I just want to see Sony start doing that. Like, why don't they have anything? That's what I want to know. Like, what's going on? Like, PS4, they were just coming out like bang, just constantly. PS4s everywhere, being proud, puffy chests and stuff, and like, yeah, look at us with sales up the arse. And now it's just nothing. And I just want to know what's going on. It's not even. I'm not even intending on getting a PS5. Like, I can only afford to invest in one kind of big console, and Xbox just does it for me. But I am interested, because I know I have friends that are heavily invested, like, Dan and you guys and my brother and a couple other mates and all that. They're all invested in that platform. So I want it to succeed, for them. I have no investment in it. And I hope that they're not, I don't want to see it fail, because that'll just be bad for a lot of people. And it would be nice to have some kind of transparency from someone over there to be like, look, this is why, this is why we're taking a bit long, or why we're a bit quiet. Even to spin it somehow to be like, look, we want to make sure that we have our special things in line to show you, and we're really proud of it. Just something, rather than nothing.
Just be transparent. At the minute, it seems quite. The only reason it seems cloak and dagger is because Microsoft are swinging. That's the only reason this seems weird. Because if they were both being quiet, you'd just go, yeah, all right, fair. But it's because Microsoft. I don't even think Microsoft have been. If you listen to Phil Spencer talk, as you said on the IGN Unlocked episode last week, it's not about. He's not doing it for competition. They're talking because they're ready to share. It's not like, oh, we want to pip you to the post. I don't think it's in his mindset to goad, but by default, it does goad Sony into going, well, show us what you've got then. Like, the audience, do you know what I mean? It's not like Microsoft are going, beat that.
Yeah.
It's the fact that the audience are going, well, show us what you're doing then. As a fence sitter in terms of the two different systems, I want to know. I want to know what they're working on. I want to know what the hardware's about. And again, if you follow previous generations, rollout of information, we're very late into the year now to not know anything other than Mark Cerny's Creepcast that happened. Like that's not enough info.
Creepcast. Oh, that's funny.
It's like, yeah, show us what the box looks like. Give us that information.
We know as much as we did back in 2013 about those consoles.
But did
well.
the full reveal event had already happened by April, hadn't it?
So Sony in Feb showed off the controller and showed off the tech specs, and then at E3 they showed off the console, the price, and the games. Microsoft showed off the tech specs in May, and then did their presentation at E3 as well. So we're still in line with all that. We probably actually found out a little bit more earlier than we would have. I will say about Phil Spencer, he's the third best studio head or presenter of their company that I've ever seen. He's just great. It's that delicate balance of being able to answer a question without actually answering the question, and it rocks. The best ever was Steve Jobs. He was number one. Number two is Kevin Feige from Marvel. He talks for 10 minutes and then you realize he never actually answered a question. And then Spencer's third, which is a compliment because it's really hard to do and to be confident in your product as you're presenting it. So credit to him. And all this, I just want both companies to be competitive with each other because, if you want to use gaming models, Madden never gets any better because there's no one really competing with it. Call of Duty does try certain stuff, but then they don't need to try anything huge because they're always going to sell the most games in a year. Like we need Microsoft swinging, and we need Sony to kind of double check what they're doing and see what happens. And that's that excites me anyway.
Nice.
Well, I think that wraps our feelings up.
Thanks,
hopefully, as I said, I'm pretty sure we're all in the same boat. Chunt, as you said, for your friends, Dan for yourself, and me probably for myself, and friends and people, family that are invested in the PlayStation ecosystem. I hope it's not the case. The last thing anybody wants is a big product landing in millions of people's houses and not working properly, because that's just a pain in the ass, especially after the year we're having. Well, we'll move from there into next topic, which we had down as being Animal Crossing. Now, Chunt, you already gave us some opinions on this. Now, you're having a first-hand experience. I'm having a first-hand experience. Dan, your partner's been playing for 2 weeks now.
Oh my god, so much. She only just jumped onto Mario Odyssey today because she went, I've probably spent too much time on this game. So how do you want to do this? Do you guys just want to talk, or do you want me to ask you specific questions about your Animal Crossing experience? How do you want to do it?
Do that. Ask us questions about our experience so far, and bear in mind that neither of us are crazy far into the game.
Okay, so neither of you had played Animal Crossing before?
Nope.
I haven't, no.
How are your feelings towards Tom Nook, including you, Tom Nook, who's on the screen?
I think Tom Nook's a mighty decent fella, trying to help people out.
Are you scared by the fact that no one knows where he gets his money?
No, because nobody knew where Tommy Wiseau got his money, and the room happened. So
it's funny you say that. There's this chick on the island who's like, I thought I was coming here to a deserted island with no money, and then I get given a massive bill. What's up with that? Like this rhino chick. And I was like, oh yeah, that's a good point. What the fuck?
All right. So now, real question. What has been your favorite activity to do on the island?
Well, I'm just walking around now. Got my Switch in hand right now. And I like just walking around at night because it's nighttime right now.
We're both just really not paying any attention to Dan. We've been playing Animal Crossing the whole time.
Just walking around at night with my axe in hand as everybody's going to bed in their tents. And, just swinging my axe, hitting trees,
Do you know what I
That
really
real
don't
fun
like? I
stuff?
don't like the fishing mechanic. I don't think the fishing mechanic works very well with the Switch Lite because it doesn't have the rumble.
Yeah, it
So
doesn't. Yeah.
Yeah. So
so if you're
I
fishing
actually
and you
did have a
feel the
little go at
bite,
that with my partner's Switch, and yeah, the rumble is a huge
so it
help
gives
to
you
it.
the rumble, and it's like right, bang, you can pull the rod, but on the
No,
Lite because it doesn't have the
it just
rumble.
feels as you're trying to catch the fish and it's tugging at the string. It just rumbles there, but when you hear the blop, it kind of stops at that time. So it's kind of two things. It's the haptic feedback and your hearing. So it helps
Yeah,
in
and
both
when you don't
scenarios.
have that haptic feedback, it makes it almost it's quite difficult. There is a visual cue, but it's so minute because there's like the fish will maybe try and bite, and then the fish actually bites. So making sure you've got the right one is quite challenging to figure out. But no, my favorite activity to do in it thus far is I think visiting other people's islands and places. Like I like just going, even some of the randomly generated ones. It's just like, oh, let's get off here and see what other materials and things I can gather not on my island, and how that plays into you kind of then bringing those materials and things back to, maybe plant a garden or something in your own on your own island, and grow resources there, because the whole idea is then you'll go to a friend's island and they'll have different stuff to what you do, and that means you can craft different things and enhance the way your own kind of little space looks. As
See, that's a very different experience to what I've been seeing, because Monique has so far only been on her own island. She hasn't gone online. She hasn't visited
Same.
anyone or anything like that. I'm curious, when going from island or staying on your own, what the percentage are you on your own island to being on other people's?
Oh, like easy 90-10. You're on your own island way more than you're anywhere else. It's just nice to discover the other inhabitants, including different fish, different bugs, different species, different fruits and things like that. You can get all of those different things on other people's islands, whereas you can't really get those on your own.
Chant, do you find this as a game that you'll just play a little bit of every day, or do you need to play it in big chunks?
Well, I'm playing it right now, so like I'm actually quite surprised that I was fully prepared to hate this. Not gonna lie, I put the money down, 78 bucks or it was, and I was like, fuck, I can't remember last time I paid full price for a game. Like I'm pretty thrifty with it these days. I wait for sales, or I get some gift cards through my Microsoft points or something. I'll get $5 off here or there or whatever. And I've been spoilt by Game Pass, and the thought of buying a game that I've never played before for full price, that's just well outside of my wheelhouse. And I was fully prepared to regret this purchase. But it's charming as hell. I think it's the game I need right now. Instead, like, I can just sit here and just run around getting stuff while I'm just hanging out at home, and I don't have to focus too much. I can just zone out, and because a lot of games these days, there's just a lot of mechanics, and there's a lot of commitment involved. And last thing you want to do after work, where you just flog mentally, is to jump into something else that's going to flog you mentally. And this, I've just gone like, wow. Like I played it until my battery died this afternoon. I was like, I felt just fine. I felt just chill as hell. And so I recommend it to people that are in my circumstance, that haven't played it before. And I used to scoff at it, man. Like when it was on Nintendo Directs, or oh, Animal Crossing's coming out and people are getting hyped about it. I'm like, whatever, it can't be that good. And then here I am. I'm living
Yeah,
through
you're
it.
right. Here he is. He can't put it down now.
Yeah, it really is the video game of the year, where you just have bars you're filling up, or watching numbers increase. Like it's what every video game is, but it's more like it's just showing you directly on the screen. This is everything you're getting, and you're just watching the number build, and that's all you're gonna.
I think the big thing about it is, and we've discussed this a little bit. It's a moment in time. And I don't think if we weren't going through as a species what we are at the moment, it would have taken off as much as it had. As you said, you can't load Twitter, you can't open YouTube, you can't jump on Mixer or Twitch or anywhere like that and not see Animal Crossing. It is everywhere at the minute. And it's getting people invested that maybe wouldn't be before. I mean, look here, two of the three of us have never, well, all three of us have never played an Animal Crossing game before. Two of the three of us are now doing it. Not in a case of actually enjoying it. Like, I looked at it and just went, I probably won't enjoy this either. But the more I saw of it, I was like, kind of get the appeal. And then it was like, right, I feel that it's, as you said to me, it's that FOMO. It's like everybody's playing this, everybody's talking about it, everybody's kind of playing together. Do you know what I mean? And it's that kind of community drive of it that I think is was one of the key selling points.
I think in Japan, I'm not sure if it was I think it was the first week. Like, it sold 1.8 million copies just in Japan alone.
It outsold Breath of the Wild and Pokemon.
Yeah, like that's
which
huge.
is ludicrous, like, to think.
Well, when you look at the game that Japan, like the biggest games over there are stuff that they can play on commute or on trains or, you know, walking around and stuff. Like they spend most of their times commuting and you know, long work hours, and that's why the dating sims over there are so friggin' huge. Like, people look for there's, you know, there's stories out there that you hear about people looking forward to, you know, booting up their dating sim to, you know, do whatever with, like to speak to that character, you know, at the end of the day. You know, it sounds like, but they got problems. But the Animal Crossing, I had a choice to make, and I certainly made it today. It was going to be Doom Eternal or this. Like, I was umming and ahhing because I just finished Doom 2016 last week, and
Animal Crossing it was.
Yeah, like I talked about it before, how it's just, that game is exhausting. It's awesome and just it's exhausting, and I think that's why I went. It didn't help that Jamie was prodding me all day, you know, and you know, broke me eventually, and I just weighed it up. I was like, I've got a choice here: it's Doom or this, and the fact of being, I can see myself just getting more exhausted with Doom Eternal, and I just wanted to chill out, and that was the tipping thing. It's only positives, man, and like Jamie said, I wonder how different this would be if, you know, the world wasn't locked down right now. You know, if it would be that much of a moment as it is. Like, even Pokemon Shield and Sword and Shield came out, that was huge, but it wasn't like this.
No,
and that's a more well-known property. Like, really,
I don't think Sword and Shield even reached the. When I said to you, I think the moment this is having reminds me of Pokemon X and Y, which they had a real moment. It was like, this is a next gen Pokemon game, but I don't feel like Sword and Shield didn't have that. It didn't have that level of hype and everybody playing it around it as this does, which is it's insane. If you'd have told me a week ago that I'd have been catting out to play Animal Crossing, I'd have told you were a moron, and there's no chance in hell of that happening. And
I can't believe you actually found a Switch today, or was it yesterday?
That was incredible. So I never dock my Switch. I had a launch day Switch, never docked it. It spent most of the time just in handheld, and obviously the trade-in value of them was really high. So I practically got my entire money back. So I traded it in a while ago, going, right, look, I'll pick one up when the eventual Pro model comes out, or we've got a new Zelda. You know, all of my games are digital. I can just jump right back in and play anything. I'd kind of had my fill of Pokemon earlier in the year. Animal Crossing was not on my radar. It was like, right, next Nintendo thing I'm realistically waiting for is the Breath of the Wild follow-up. So I'll grab a Pro or enhanced model or whatever is probably going to come out alongside that game. And then, I was like, do you know what? I'm going to go and try and find a light, because I want to get involved in this. I don't want to miss out. And still ended up kind of quids up in terms of, you know, the downgrading to a light. So it's a case I've still quids up, but I have the machine, and I love the build of it. It's really, really, really. It's made for handheld. Obviously, it doesn't dock, and I think it's just how I want to consume Nintendo games. You know, for the longest time, everybody was like, I want a console Pokemon game. I want a console this game that I can dock in my TV. But then the reality came, especially for me, and it was like, don't really need to do that. I'm happy just playing handheld. It gives me very Game Boy Advance feels, which I quite like. Obviously, you wouldn't be playing a game like this on that, but
so from my understanding, I think the Switch lights are all made in Japan, but the the bigger Switches, like Monique managed to get, apparently they're all made out of the US. So if you go online right now and try and buy a Switch, the lights will pop up for 300 Australian or whatever, but you can't find a regular Switch anywhere. So I couldn't believe when we actually found one. And
Right.
the lights are actually been out of stock as well until yesterday. Apparently, stock started reappearing yesterday in terms of lights at like big retailers for us here in the UK. But then the big box stores and the game stores were still out of stock. So it was like your best and only chance was a grocery store, supermarket, whatever you want to call it in your part of the world. And yeah, I had to get some things yesterday, and I was walking past the end. I was like, "There's no chance they even stock them here," and they had one left on the shelf, and I was like, "I can't pass it up." Came home, downloaded Animal Crossing, and played it for the rest of the evening, whilst watching some Tiger King.
It's crazy, man. So you got was it the color teal one, or what's it called?
The turquoise teal thing. I don't know what the box says.
How do you find it? Are you happy with the color?
Yeah, it's like pastel-y. I like it.
Yeah, that was one I was umming and ahhing between when I got mine about that color, and
what does this show become?
Evidently got the grey one, but I don't regret it at all. But I was so close when we got it. I'm like, oh, it does look cool. But,
it's it's subtle. It's not like pop in your face, which I feel like the yellow one was, like very bright and in your face. It's quite subtle. I like it. But yeah, no complaints there. But Animal Crossing has it's got me by the balls at the moment, and I'm looking forward to playing some more of it over the next week. So we'll see. We'll do a check in next week's episode, Chunt, see how far we've progressed and whether we've managed to go visit each other's islands and do a dance.
I hope so, Jamie. I hope so.
Me too. It'll be great. So passing Animal Crossing then. Dan, you had an idea for a topic this week around our dream video games, so I'll let you kind of take the reins and go for that.
Yeah, so I feel like this. Most of my topics most weeks are going to be some like either speculation or creating some type of thing out of nothing.
It's good. It's fun.
I just wanted to know, we're 4 episodes down now. We should let the people watching this know the type of people that we are and the type of games that we want to play or we want to see happen in the future at some point.
It's a dark path we're going on here to know more about us. How much do you want to know?
So we want to talk about today our dream games. You can be as realistic or unrealistic as you want to be, but the idea is to cover the developer you'd want to make, the genre of game they would make, the setting of the game, and a mechanic that's been used in other games that you'd like to see them try, or a totally new mechanic that you thought off the top of your head. Whatever you want to do. So I'll lead us off, and we can discuss as we go through. So the first game, I'll start with the developer so everyone knows the way I'm heading with this one. So developer would be Naughty Dog.
No shit, I knew it.
Yeah,
it was never going to be anybody else.
No.
Best looking game engine out there. Still, they make linear games, but they just look incredible. There was some screenshots we were looking at earlier today, and just holy shit, man! So
it is very pretty.
The genre of game I want them to move into is sci-fi. Now, when I'm speaking of sci-fi, like technically Last of Us is sci-fi, but I'm talking space. We're going into space, and that's more of the setting, but the genre is still a third-person shooter. But with most of their games, in Uncharted 3, they really started trying to add more, like in melee style combat. And then by the time you got to The Last of Us, they had, like Ellie was throwing bricks and you could come up and slam the guy against the wall while moving on to another guy. So they developed that a little bit, moved into Uncharted 4, and they increased the AI's capabilities in that game, and I think in The Last of Us 2, just from the snippets that we've seen, where like AI is actually communicating with each other, I think by increasing that workload and having, as their games are getting bigger and bigger and wider, even though they're still linear, I think a Mass Effect-ish game, not with the multiple branching stories, I think with multiple choices throughout the game, like in the last Uncharted 4, they let you kind of tell the story you wanted to tell, but kept the stories linear. And I think that to do that in a science fiction setting and just going not open world, but we're going to take you from sort of like Jedi Fallen Order does, where it's like, here are these different planets and you go to them and we'll tell you a story through these planets and things like that. So the mechanic is, I think it'll be just more choice in dialogue, still linear story though. Setting, sci-fi genre, still your third person shooter, but I think they'll move more in towards the melee combat. Maybe do more like a God of War, where you can get rid of whatever you're using and have a whole nother system for fighting. And Naughty Dog, because it's Naughty Dog, man.
Because Naughty Dog, yeah. Wow. Look, I wouldn't say no to that. I really wouldn't. Not gonna lie.
The next step.
John.
Cool. Oh, okay. Look, mine is just going to be so goddamn obvious. All right. It's going to be an Xbox exclusive, all right? It's going to be a big flex. You know how Sony had their filthy Spider-Man exclusive game?
Yeah.
Well, in my world, we're going to have the initiative making an exclusive Superman game. How about that? How about them apples and the pedigree in that studio? My God.
I was putting my money on you doing a Justice League, but you just went with the singular Superman.
I want a goddamn good Superman game, Dan. You know how hard it is being a Superman fan, and you don't have a good Superman game? The last good one that came out was on the original Xbox. And you know, the rest of them have been shit. And I want it. I need it. And it's going to be, I would like them to actually remake that one because the story wasn't too bad. Like Brainiac was involved and he was trying to, this was around the Y2K, so it's kind of well out of place. But if you take the Injustice Brainiac, who's more closely, the Injustice 2, who's more close to the actual comic book, how he's just menacing and intense and just dark and like an actual threat, you know, just badass. Like if you take that one and build a Superman game around this Brainiac threat, and I want that all up in myself. Like I say, spread my cheeks a lot, and I really would for this. I really would. I would do anything for it. I really like. You just say anything, and I'll do it, and just to get that game. Not gonna lie, and even if it's like linear, that's fine. If it's an open world thing, like if it's, I would love to have something like an open world Metropolis, at least, if you can't at least go around the world. I don't think where we're going, it's going to be acceptable to have loading times to go to different maps. Or if we can actually have a map the size of like Metropolis is the biggest city on the planet, or at least in America. So, I mean, that's a pretty huge playground to play in. But if you could kind of maybe venture on, like Spider-Man game had some introductory characters like Black Cat and, you know, other Marvel characters and shit like Silver Sable and, you know, whatever else. But even if you did like Gotham, how it's actually at a different location than in the Batman vs Superman film. But I didn't mind that, how it was across the bay. Like it just made sense to have Gotham and Metropolis be within the same kind of, you know, area or that part of the world. Like it just made sense. And I was like, oh yeah, like you would kind of see Gotham from across the bay. So if they did that, like you at least kind of have some crossover maybe with Batman. Like that'd be just so dope. And I want this. It's the most the biggest game that I want, and I know it's never going to happen, but I would love that flex so bad, Dan. I just want it. I can taste it. Dan,
Can we expand on your idea right now? Because I got some thoughts.
Look, I'm a simple man. I have simple needs. All I want is just super flight, like super speed, freeze breath, super breath, heat vision, X-ray vision, telescopic vision,
A
microscopic
few
vision,
moments
all that.
later.
Yeah, I want all this shit, man. Like that game from 2000, or what is it, 2 or 1 or some shit, whenever that one on Xbox came out, that game displayed more of his abilities than any of the modern games like on PS2 and 360. And I don't get it. Like people are like, oh, it's too hard to make a Superman game. I was like, well, that one friggin' did. And you can fly around all these maps, and you got different quests and missions like per map. This is the old one. So if they kind of take that purpose into this modern, like massive open world, like look at the massive worlds that you can build these days, like The Witcher 3 and GTA 5 and what's that, Red Dead. Like it's massive, these huge maps. You just have to do this huge metropolis landscape with Gotham over there for some side quests. Maybe he needs to get some advice from Batman to do some detective work if like Lex Luthor's involved, and with Brainiac, he needs a kind of human contact and all this kind of shit to turn the world against Superman. Like it's just, there are stories that you can base this off. There's Batman, Superman, Batman comic issues, storylines that you can just pull out that have Lex Luthor and Brainiac in it. Just do that, but with super amazing graphics, like that new Avengers game coming out. If that one can have multiple different Avengers that you can control across New York and the bloody helicarrier and that other location, why can't we have a game with one hero that's excellent? Why can't I have that, Dan?
See, I feel like what is good about Superman is he's just made for this time and game where you have a skill tree to build up. Like imagine like the story, like you start in Smallville and you get like, you start up just by running fast, and then you get the X-ray vision and you win and you cool breath, and then you make your way to the Fortress of Solitude, and that's where you learn to fly, and then suddenly you can fly from Kansas to the fortress, and then you make your way as Clark Kent moves to Metropolis. Then you're in Metropolis, and then you can travel between all these places, and it kind of builds you into it rather than just dropping you all there. That's just man, that'd be good.
Dan.
Now,
Chunt's
so
coming in his
before
pants.
Chunt puts cream all over his freaking camera,
Dan, I want this game. You asked me a question, and I'm trying to tell you, and it's just like it's it's that forbidden fruit that you just don't think you're ever going to get, and that's what I want.
Jamie, are you going to turn the steam up, or are you going to put a damper on?
I'm probably gonna keep Chunt's steam turning up because I think he might be quite inclined as to what idea I've got. So, for reasons relating to nothing other than combat and their ability to tell a story, I'll go with Rocksteady.
Yeah, nice.
The property, Power Rangers.
Oh my God! I did not expect that. Jamie, continue.
The genre being what did they call this Godfall game? It's not a looter shooter. It's like a looter combat
slasher
style. Like
looter slasher, they called it.
Yeah, looter slasher. So,
oh my God!
What generation do we have to play in? All of them. Because that's the way that you're going to get your loot. But yeah, so imagine the Destiny loop where you need a helmet, you need your chest piece, you need your gauntlets, and every single generation of the Power Rangers is available to earn gear from, building up your own kind of unique ranger. Story-wise, I can't think of what story I'd want them to tell. I think I'd want it to be a unique one and not focus too much around. Make it canon, but make it unique.
People who are watching, Chana's not frozen. His screen is not frozen. He's just lost all of his fluid.
Combat style, as I said, Rocksteady for a reason in terms of how they did combat for Arkham. I think that'd work really well in terms of like a melee style combat game.
Fighting and going between characters.
Oh my
mid-fight.
God!
Yeah,
Jamie.
and then in terms of what we'd want them to do as kind of a core mechanic, I know that the Power Rangers universe has a bunch of villains, but I reckon it'd be great to see the Nemesis system.
Yeah, nice. I thought you were going there as soon as you brought up the villain.
Yeah. So a Nemesis system whereby, you know, all right, you fight this boss who, so Chunt, for hypothetically, you fight Goldar, he kicks your ass, and then he dethrones whoever was above him in terms of the context. I mean, if we're going starting back at Mighty Morphin, so he dethrones Rita and he's the big bad now.
Yeah.
And he gets, the more times you lose to him, the more difficult he gets to beat. You have to go around and gear up and beat the smaller monsters. Maybe have to acquire certain powers or gear from specific generations to go back and kick his ass. You know, just open the Shattered Grid up as well. Let us go between different timelines. Rather than going off-world, we go through timelines instead of off-world. I mean, for me personally, I'd be fine just with the Mighty Morphin era, but, you know, go through the ninjas and stop at Turbo. Turbo was trash. But everything up to Turbo, let's play with that. But yeah, for the greater good, have all of the generations, all of the gear, all of the outfits. You know, we've got Saba there. We've got the
you gotta have
dagger.
Gold Zero Ranger with Pyramidas. Oh my god,
Pyramidas,
Sword battles, Jamie.
with his staff. You've got
Megazord
all of it.
What do we think of the idea of like you creating your own Power Ranger group, but then you have the outfits of all the different generations that you can chop and
the
change?
Master Morpher is canon, Jamie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
the Master Morpher is canon.
Exactly what Dan's saying. You've got this new team that have the ability to use everything from every generation, but you have to go and kind of earn it. Like, I'm not talking microtransactions. You actually have to go and earn it. So if you want, say, Pyramidas, you have to go on a big fucking old quest to get it.
Jamie, I'll do it.
And I'd want min-maxing to be a proper thing. You know, so like to do that, you have to go into a dungeon to get it, and the dungeon is fucking difficult. Scales with you. You can do it in whatever order you want, but the game scales with you level-wise. You know, almost kind of raid-like by the time you're going to get some of these, you know, historical pieces. So if you want the Dragon Dagger and you want the Dragon Sword, or do you know what I mean? That is like end game boss. You have to fight Evil Tommy, and he's a fucking badass. And if he kicks your ass, he takes over the whole world. If he kicks your ass and takes over the world, he maybe becomes Draken in the process, and it opens up a whole new storyline.
Jamie.
Like there's no way to beat him first time, so that happens. You can make it part of like the story, and it's the possibilities there are endless. But yeah, the reason behind, as you said, the three pillars, Rocksteady definitely for their combat ability. The property, I think, needs a good video game. It just hasn't had one. The mechanic, the Nemesis system is not in enough stuff. It got so heavily praised for Shadow of Mordor, and then just hasn't been in anything else. Like, let's put it in more stuff. I hope it's in the next Batman game. I hope that system is in the next Batman game for sure.
So is this? Sorry, I might have missed when you mentioned this. Is this online? Is this like Destiny style upgrading
so
your equipment?
That's what I mean in terms of like a looter slasher. So it's you can play as a group.
So are we nervous? Are we nervous about Warner Brothers being the one that hosted these servers, considering everything that went wrong with Shadow of War?
I think they'll learn their lesson down.
Nah, we're not even thinking about that. Rocksteady have left Warner Brothers. Positive.
So in this dream, Warner Brothers is they're
gone. They don't exist. Rocksteady have been acquired by Bungie. It's fine.
Fuck.
All right. Well, I think those three very good games. I think we'd all have a good go at those. Even I would play that game that you just described, Jamie, and that's an online game.
Now I'm depressed. That we don't live in a world where that exists.
He's had everything. He needs to go to sleep and dream about Animal Crossing, Power Rangers, and all the kinds of video games.
I think it's time to take us out, Jamie.
Yeah. Well, that's an hour and 5 minutes today, guys. Longest one yet. I don't know how we managed that. We must have spoke about Animal Crossing for a considerable amount of time. But yeah,
just like what happens in the game.
Thank you to anybody who's watched any of our episodes so far. As we've kind of alluded to across Twitter, it's been a nice warm welcome. We're thoroughly enjoying doing this. I know that I'm really enjoying. Looking forward to like an hour just to talk to you two guys. Make sure we get on camera and have a chat about something that we all care about. If you wouldn't mind so kindly subscribing by that big button. Join us next week. If you've watched live, which I don't think anybody's watched live. I don't think we really had the chance to promote it. It was kind of an off the wall, let's just do this now thing. But thank you for joining us, one person in the chat. Every little helps. Everybody keep safe, and we will see you next week for Let's Talk Games.
Bye.
Bye.